Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. My name is Mari Casey. I am the founder CEO of Uncompany. And nothing drives me crazier than getting to the end of the day and feeling like I have no idea what I've done all day. So like, you're super tired, you're about to go to bed and you're like, wow, I've been so busy. I have no idea what I accomplished all day. I hate that feeling of like losing track of all my time.
I'm John Pelfrey, Director of Operations for Uncompany. I love to find efficiencies. I love to build productive systems. I really enjoy getting in there and solving the puzzle of how to make operations work for our small company.
So I started Uncompany in 2015. And part of the reason why a lot of times we start a business is because, you want to reclaim your time. You've been busy, you're kind of burning out. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start my own business. And so I started Uncompany in 2015 to really help connect freelancers and clients so they could build, grow, and scale with contingent workers. And in the process, in all best intentions, in 2 years of working independently, working by myself, I started to bury myself in certain levels of inefficiencies, like, 50,000 unread emails here, like missed voicemails there, and they just started to pile up. So a lot of times, as we start a business, the business is largely living in our head. In my head, it's like I say, is like a long walk through a scary neighborhood. So at that point, in 2015, 2017, I started to reach out to folks. I found someone like John to help me get the business out of my head and out of my inbox and kind of really operationalize it.
I spent the first few years of my career, as was mentioned earlier, literally in the basement of hospitals and pharmacies, counting the steps of pharmacists. I mean, actually from one side of the room to the other, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, trying to reduce the number of steps and the processes as people moved through the pharmacy and picked orders. At the same time, we also tracked all the flow of the data in the hospital. So we knew how many pills were everywhere in the hospital. We knew how much money it was worth, where it was living, and tracked it all the way to actually the patient at the very end. So I love sort of the process of figuring out how to make that more efficient, how to make that better. I'm also an inbox zero person. Right. And so when I met Mari and her 50,000-ish unread emails, I had a tiny panic attack at first. I'm not going to lie.
Because she's dying over here.
I couldn't live that way for a day, much less every day. So Mari gave me this challenge. She said, I have all these unread emails. I have this business that's growing, but I need somebody to help me take it out of my head, take it out of my inbox, and turn it into an actual functional, scalable business operation. And at the time, I just started freelancing, and I thought this was a really great opportunity to go in and solve that problem with someone. And Mari's been really open-minded. She's been a lot of fun to work with, and she's kind of given me free reign to do everything except solve the email problem.
I'm probably at like 53. I'm a digital hoarder. It's okay. I'm okay with it. But and like at some point, I might want to go back to that email in like 2016 and like look it back up again. So I'm just going to hang on to them for a little bit longer, just in case. When you get past a certain point, once you get past 24,000, you're just like, whatever. It's all good.
24 gives me stress. 24,000.
Every once in a while, I'll take like a little screen grab of my phone of like, and I'll just send it to everybody. I'm like, hey guys, here's where we are now. It's fine. So in the process of building this system and operationalizing, it's allowed us to build a team of about 3 to 4 full-timers, but we're working globally with about 600 different freelancers and clients kind of all the time. So it's allowed us to be able to scale and build our business in a way that is not increasing massive overhead and kind of being more efficient. So it's been really awesome, besides the digital hoarding part of it.
Right. We're going to start off today with just a little riddle, a little question. We're going to see if anybody gets this. So what shrinks, doesn't come back, slips away, and flies? Time. So smart. We've got some people in here. Time is our one resource that we cannot make more of. It is our most precious resource as far as I'm concerned. Once it's gone forever. So we have to do some things to protect it. We have to do some things to protect our time. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how do we protect it? How do we make it more efficient?
Yes, everyone thinks that like whales, pandas, like not, these are the most endangered things of its time. It's like whales, panda, all of our time. Like it's not coming back. We have to find ways to get it. We have to find ways to regain it. So we like to tell stories and kind of give illustrations in like personalities and people. So we're going to talk about Steve. We're all Steve. We're all busy professionals. We all probably go to bed at the end of the day and are just like, wow, what did I do all day? I feel, creating ripples versus waves. Steve is a senior project manager. He is both the personal side of Steve and the professional side of Steve. Personal Steve has 2 kids who are busy in sports, go to school. If any of us have kids, especially kids who play sports, we know the level of time commitment that takes. He also, probably like a lot of us, work from home and is like walking past the laundry as it's turning and you're going downstairs and doing this. He has a dog who likes to go outside. So all these different, personal sides of things that demand our time are real, and a lot of times we spend the majority of our day trying to get those things done so we can move on to the professional stuff.
On the professional side, Steve is the manager of a team. That team is spread across multiple time zones. So you've got a situation where you've got a team that needs to work asynchronously, but Steve, being the leader, has to be available at all of these different times. He's also, as many of you probably are, his own IT support. This is one of the hardest parts about working from home or working for yourself or working with a small business. When the internet goes down, I can't tell you how many hours I've spent calling Spectrum, Time Warner, whatever the version that they want to call themselves today, dealing with that. It still doesn't work consistently in my house. I swear, every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's true,
it's like clockwork. It shuts off. So no meetings with me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At the same time, Steve just lost a project manager in his department. He's down a person. So when he's down a person, he has to do 2 things. He has to go fill that position, but he also has to find people to help do the work while he's trying to fill the position. Steve's got a lot of challenges on his plate.
Yeah, so again, Steve goes to bed at the end of the day and he's just like, what did I do all day? I feel super exhausted. I had all the things I needed to get done. I got maybe some of them done, but I'm not really sure where I spent most of my time. And like I said, I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling that I'm exhausted at the end of the day, at the end of the week, but I didn't meet any of the goals I had really set up for myself. And typically when I get to that point, and we all should at this point, just sit down and say, what am I doing? Like, where am I spending my time? Because if we're not paying attention to it, it's so easy to lose track of it. It's just kind of just poof, there it goes. Whales, pandas, your time gone. So when we get to that point, we feel like we're really, really busy, but not achieving anything. It's good to sit down and do an audit.
Right. How many of us love the word audit?
Yeah.
There is an accountant in the room. Yeah. You can find the accountants when they raise their hand because that means money for them. Yeah. For the rest of us, the word audit is not an exciting word at all. But I want you to think of this as sort of the same idea as if you started a diet, and maybe the first thing that you would do is spend a week tracking your food intake, tracking your calorie intake. We're going to do the same idea here. Steve is going to spend a week and write down everything that he does, personal, professional, picking up kids, going to the grocery store, time in meetings, head down work, everything, personal, professional, and he's going to categorize it into those different types of activities. This is going to give him insight into his daily Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday sort of schedule, but also give him an idea of where he's losing his time, where he could make up for time in other places. So this audit, although it doesn't sound like fun, is something that will help him visualize what he's actually doing on a daily basis.
So we're going to ask you guys to do an audit, and we will provide a resource at the end where you guys will be able to do this. And it's a little bit of homework. And I know it happens when we get these kind of things. We do, like, it's January and you're doing I'm going to diet this year and I'm going to get in shape. All of a sudden you have the best, most efficient, healthy week of your life. You're just like crushing it. When you do your audit, be really honest. Don't have the most efficient week of your life. Just write down all the things that you're doing. Also think about the 15, 20, 30 minutes before you start something and then that time after, because there's always that switching time that we forget about. That's like driving to the meeting, parking, going into the meeting itself, and then coming back, sitting in traffic, all that stuff. So just be aware of that switching time on either side, because a lot of times those all kind of add up to be, massive losses of time. So just be aware of it. So do the audit. No one's going to look at your homework. I promise. No one's going to judge you. So write all the things down.
That's right. So how many of us know who Dwight Eisenhower is? All of us, I hope, right? One of the most efficient people that I can think of in modern history, right? This guy led the Allied forces in World War II. And then he came home, he was elected president, and he helped us do a lot of things, especially build the infrastructure for a lot of things that we take for granted today, like the interstate system. So Dwight Eisenhower was a guy who knew how to prioritize his time. And there's a quote that's attributed to him. I have 2 kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent. So what happened out of this? Someone, a smart person, came along and created the Eisenhower box.
Yes. So this is a tool. How many of you guys have seen the Eisenhower box? Yeah.
Yes.
Right. A lot of us as business professionals are used to these kind of resources and tools and things like that. And they're great. The tricky thing with resources and tools is that they are, they're causing a process change for a lot of us. And sometimes when we have things that are difficult to kind of integrate into our lives, we have really great intentions when we start them. We're like, I'm going to just crush this Eisenhower box every week. I'm going to be best at it. And then like week 2 happens and you get busy. And then like week 3, you kind of drop off a little bit. And then week 4, you've totally forgotten it. So what I like to do with tools like this is to take it, understand the principles behind it, why I'm going to use it, and then kind of adjust it and integrate it into my life. We follow the path of least resistance. So the goal with using these resources is to fold them into how you actually work. So I do like a pared down version of the Eisenhower box. I do like a little kind of weekly mock-up. So just understand the principles behind it and then adapt it so it works best for you.
We're going to walk you through each one of these just a little bit. So the first box here is our important and urgent box. These are the things that Steve, in our case, needs to get done, and they probably have to be done specifically by Steve. These are things like picking up his kids from practice. He's the only one that can do it. If he doesn't pick up his children from their soccer practice, then the children get left on the field. No one wants that to happen, so Steve has to make that happen. On the business side, he got an angry client. He got an email from an angry client. And these are the types of things, Steve being the team lead, he has to take care of this. This is urgent. It's got to happen today. It's important because we want to keep that client happy. We want to make that. So these are all of the things that he needs to do, and these need to be done first, and they need to be done probably by Steve. Don't
forget your kids. They don't like it. You don't show up.
That's right.
So the next box is the not urgent but important. So these tend to be the things that are more strategic. Like these are honestly the things that we do want to spend our time on. Like this is our dream type of stuff. This is our pitching new systems, hiring people, taking a cooking class, taking a vacation. These are the things that we really, really want to spend our time doing. But we don't spend a lot of time here because we never get to those things. Those are not the things that are kind of vying for our attention. So for Steve, it's like all of these things that he wants to eventually get to. The goal with something like this system is to eventually free up time so some of these items can move into the other boxes.
Yes. And then next we get to the third quadrant, which is our not important and urgent. This is what we call the delegate quadrant. These are things that are, it's like your busy work, right? It's going to the grocery store.
John loves busy work.
I hate busy work. That's we'll talk about automation later. That's why I like to do things once and then not do them again. So these are things like answering emails. We all, have to do it, but sometimes there are emails that we don't need to answer that we can automate.
You can save for later.
We can save them for later. We can tag them. We don't have to answer. I just read an article last night on how people spend almost 2 hours a day on email. And so if you can just maybe limit the amount of time that you check it, even, it'll save you a little bit of time. But this is your busy work. This is also things like weekly reporting. I also hate weekly reports. So those are things that are just feel like busy work. So for you, these are the things that for whatever reason in your business, they don't feel important to you, but they are things that have to get done. We have to still check our email. We have to still build those reports for the people that need them. But we're going to be careful about how we do that. And that's why this is in our delegate box, because they need to get done. They don't necessarily have to be done by Steve.
I would like to highlight get groceries. This is a personal passion of mine, is to get everybody to order their groceries online. It'll save you so much time. Unless you guys love going into the grocery store, especially if you have children, it's no. Order groceries online. You can do it on your phone. And then it also it'll suggest them back to you the next week and you can just add additional things. It's the best ever. Love it. Groceries, get it, order it online. Okay. The next one is the elimination box. So these are the things that we can have some easy wins. We can regain some of our time right there. So it's, it's the things, it's like the doom scrolling. It's the 35 minutes of TikTok videos. I just put in here research future Airbnbs because that's kind of what I like to do. I'm like, where could I go? I could go to that island. I thought it looks like a spaceship. Maybe I'll stay there someday. So those are the things that absorb our time. Honestly, a lot of the things that live in this box tend to be things that we're using to procrastinate the things that we should delegate. So pay attention to those things that are absorbing that part of your schedule. Some of the things are really obvious. You can cut them pretty quickly. Reduce your doom scrolling down to 1 hour a day or something like that. But the nice thing with this is that those are the things that you can pay attention to and quickly get that time back.
Absolutely. And be careful in this box too, because I will pretend to be productive you know, maybe I don't want to pay my bills because I want to put it off and I'd rather do something else. And so I don't want to spend that time doing that. So I might walk around the house and find some project to do. I might go and, oh, look, there's some there's some laundry that needs to be done. Throw that in the laundry machine, right? Like anything to be productive when I'm not actually being productive. Those are my excuses and my ways around it. That's the stuff that I need to eliminate.
I don't know if my husband's watching this, but he should also procrastinate with some laundry. Just kidding. Okay. Delegate.
Yes. So delegate. Now we're going to talk specifically about that not important but urgent box, and we're going to talk about how you can delegate. What are some ways that we can improve our lives by asking other people or other systems to do that work for us? Oops. We both hit the button.
We both hit the button. So this box, I like to take this box and organize it into 3 different boxes. There are 3 ways that we can delegate. We can delegate internally, we can delegate externally, and we can delegate through automations, or the robots, as we like to say. So the first one is our internal delegation. This is using the resources around you. Notice I said using and not abusing. You don't want to take all the things that you don't want to do and like dump it on other people. But what we do at Uncompany, we'll do this a couple times a year. We'll sit around and we'll say, okay, what is it that I'm doing that I like to keep doing? What are some things that I don't want to do? And what are some things that are not great uses of my time? So just, that's like a little mini audit. It's another audit. See, we just do audits all the time. But just be really aware of all those different things and then sit down with your team and just have a share session. Say, hey, here's some of the things that I would love to get off of my plate. I can take that, you can take this, and just do a little exchange. So back to Steve. Steve has done this, being the genius businessman that he is. He dreads doing the status sheet. It's just not a good use of his time. Again, it's something that has to get done every single week, but it doesn't necessarily need to get done by Steve. So he has a conversation with his team, and Zoe, who's new to the team, says she doesn't mind doing the status sheets. She loves Excel. It's her favorite thing. And she gets this really clear picture across all the departments of what's happening. So now there's this exchange. Steve gets back 2 hours of his week. Zoe is now contributing to the team and gaining some more insight into what's happening. It's a win.
It's a win. At the same time, this is one that the internal delegation we think about as like an obvious one. External delegation, this is one that is a slightly bigger challenge for people. And this is why Uncompany exists. We exist to help people externally delegate, specifically their creative services work, their marketing and advertising type work. If you need people to write blogs, copyright for blogs, if you need people to do your social media or do graphic design, that's why we exist, and that's where our 600 freelancers come into play. In this case, Steve, he is not an artist, he is not a writer, but he needs to get a PowerPoint presentation done, much like the one you see here. But because this isn't really Steve's core skill, he has asked Michael and Sarah, Michael to design it, Sarah to write a copy for it. Steve's given them some information, he's given them an outline, but he's engaged some freelancers to make this happen. And this does a few things for him. One, it means that Steve doesn't have to do something that he's not skilled at. Two, it now takes Michael and Sarah much less time to execute that on the calendar in terms of calendar days. If I'm Steve and it's a skill that I don't necessarily have, I could end up spending, a couple of hours just trying to figure out how to get it set up, get the template built, do all that stuff. With these two people, with Michael and Sarah, this is old hat for them. They can knock it out really quickly and get it done so that Steve has time to practice and he isn't still tweaking his design right up to the time where he's getting ready to talk.
Yeah, a lot of times the things that you necessarily aren't, that's not your core competency or you don't love doing, there's people that just love. There's people who love PowerPoint designs, people who love Excel, and they do it really well. And so that's part of what we do at Uncompany is try to find people who not can just do the job, but actually really enjoy it and are building a career and building what they like to do around it. So the beauty of this also with Steve is that he's reclaimed a couple of his hours back, and now he's starting to grow his team. So he's also starting to test the viability of maybe needing a full-time designer, maybe needing a full-time writer. And so it allows him to kind of grow and scale his staff as well, while he's, kind of still having that flexibility of working with contingent workers. And that takes us to the bonus section. So one of the things we talk about with freelancers is a lot of times when we're using freelancers as delegation tools, we're thinking about it when we're already like swamped, right? It's like, usually we like to call it the stop the bleeding mentality, where we get these calls and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm drowning, or like somebody, so-and-so just went on maternity leave. And I'm like, you knew that 9 months ahead, like you guys could have gotten ahead of this by now. Usually that we get that panic call and it's like, I need somebody now and immediately. So we are trying to push people to really think proactively about those, those peaks and valleys of our busy schedule. We're getting ready to enter one right now. It's called Q4. It's called the holiday season, where it's like that massive demand on our personal time, concerts, networking parties, all the things that we get to do, all the lovely stuff is also kind of crashing into all of our productive working time. And so when we can identify those busy seasons, so we can get ahead of it, we can staff and kind of find the resources we need before it happens. We're not going to be in a place of panic when we're trying to find folks. So Steve, again, being the smart guy that he is like, you know what? I really like working with Michael and Sarah. They're awesome. And now they're kind of like a flex member of our team. I feel really solid about them. And I'm going to start to identify that I have maybe 3 or 4 busy seasons a year. Usually it's around event season. And I'm always panicking. I need like a video editor. I need a motion designer. I need somebody who can go and, shoot videos, shoot B-roll. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get ahead of it. And I'm going to hire folks. I'm going to look for some freelancers and build a team around these kind of busy seasons, get them ready to go, get them set up. So when that happens, I'm not panicking. I'm not struggling to find folks in a busy season.
At the same time, while you're dealing with the work side of it, one of the other benefits to proactively thinking about engaging freelancers or some outside help is that you take care of all of that back office work stuff that people forget about. If I need something and I need it done today, but I don't start looking for it until today, there's a lot that has to happen, right? We still have to negotiate a scope. We still have to deal with rates. We probably need to deal with some tax forms and we might even need to do things like show them where the Dropbox folder is or where to park if they're coming to a place. There's a lot of onboarding things that are hidden costs that we have to take care of ahead of time. So a lot of what we talk about when we talk to our clients is this idea that you might not need a person to fit a skill today, but if you ever need them or if you ever think you will, let's go ahead and get them onboarded now. Let's get the paperwork out of the way. Let's get all of the messy stuff done so that when you need them and it is time to get something done and I need it tomorrow, they're ready to go to work and they're not waiting on you to respond back or to get approval from your finance team or any of that. Yes.
But isn't that also the importance of standardization, of making sure that things are standard so that things work smoothly?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You want to make your processes standardized. You want to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. But when you bring a new person into the team, yeah, then you have those processes, you have those steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you can also follow. So yeah, that's a super helpful point. Yes.
Is there a good metric for determining when to 1099 these freelancers to W2 them, like bring them on board full time? Because that to me feels like, from a startup perspective, a hard, it's a gray line. I don't want to provide all of the benefits from time in startup, and I don't have that to offer. But when in that timeline doesn't mean, hey, this person's doing a lot of work for me, I like their work, I want to keep them and make sure they're mine. Yeah,
good point. You want to take that one?
Yeah, I think, did you have something? I thought you were going to say something to him. No, I think it's a good question. I mean, and honestly, just employment laws and stuff are constantly changing. I mean, it's something that's a big part of our business. So we're always watching it like, oh, what's going to happen now? Because especially as this workforce and this, the talent market has grown and everyone's really realizing the value of independent workers. There's, once that happens, everyone starts looking at how we can tax it and how we can organize it in a different way. So one of the things we talk about, and actually John's created another really cool spreadsheet tool. I was thinking about the staffing calculator.
Oh yeah.
He can send it to you. It allows you to say like how much time am I going to be spending with this person on a consistent basis? And at what point does that threshold switch to where it's like, okay, it would make sense to bring them in full time. And a lot of what we do with the process of, we do this, one of our full-time hiring practices is called test drive. And that's because we recommend a contract to full-time when it's possible. Because, it's like, I'm trying you out. You're trying me out. It's like dating before getting married. A lot of times with full-time employment, we're like, we're married, we're in it, and it's like, I didn't even have coffee with you yet. So what we always try to say is like, when you test the viability of somebody and you can make sure that the relationship works on both sides, it's usually a great, because once you do kind of ramp up to full-time, you've worked the kinks out and you understand what people are going to be bringing to the table, and they also understand how you work. So the answer to your question is it's really, it depends on what the need is, and it depends on like what the skill is and how long you want to like test them out and kind of go back and forth, and how much you're going to need them, and if there's a seasonality to that skill.
Absolutely. And I started off with a 90-day contract with Mari even though I'm employee number one.
And then I was like,
Right.
can you say longer?
Yeah.
How about more?
And so it is a really great way. It allowed me to test out whether or not I like to work with her, and she the same way, whether or not she liked to work with me. That was really, really helpful. Some specifics around things, there are some laws and some rules around when someone becomes technically full-time. Those do change on a regular basis, but there are some basic nuts and bolts. One of those nuts and bolts is that you can't dictate where someone works if they are an independent worker. So you can't say you have to be in an office 40 hours a week. If you hire someone and they're an independent worker, they work where they work. They also work when they work. And you can't dictate you have to be there 8 to 5. So while you need the work done, as an example, I need this PowerPoint presentation done, right? I'm Steve. Steve engages these people and says, I need this done by Friday. But Steve doesn't say, you have to come into the office on Wednesday from 8 to 5 to get this done. He might say, I need this done. I'd like to see a first round by this particular time or whatever, and all of that's acceptable. But if Michael wants to stay up till 3 in the morning to get it done, then Michael's going to stay up till 3 in the morning to get it done. At the same time, it also has to deal with the length of time that someone works for you as well. So there's rules around how long they can work. There are some corporations in the area that the rule is a year at 40 hours a week. It adjusts and changes. And that's why working with a company like Uncompany, we help you to understand all of that in greater detail than you having to worry about it for yourself.
It can be really complicated.
It can be really complicated.
And it can be gray a little bit. So it's a
Yeah.
good question though. All right, we were talking about.
Yes, I think we covered this and we
Cool.
talked about, the outsourcing and the bonus and the proactive. The robot, the animation, the automation, I should say, the animation for the automation. So this is my passion. This is my something that I'm really excited about. And it's actually kind of funny. I'm going to embarrass someone for a second. The reason why I'm excited about this is because I met this lady over here, Gwen, several years ago. We worked in the same place. And I was always curious, like Gwen was over in the corner creating all these things and automating the stuff. And I was like, what are you doing over here? This looks kind of cool. And so sure enough, it has become a passion and an interest of mine. I have Gwen to thank for piquing that interest. I've embarrassed her a tiny bit now. Yes, you're welcome. So here are a few of the tools that we use at Uncompany. These are not all of the tools that we use at Uncompany, but these are just 5. Some of them are a little more complicated than others. And we're going to talk about 2 specifically, Zapier and Calendly. And I'll just give you a few ideas here. ActiveCampaign is our marketing automation tool. For those of you who are not familiar with what marketing automation is, it's the idea that someone comes to your website, fills out a form, or they click on a button on social media, and it tags that person, it gathers the information from the form, and then from there, we can take that data and we can do things like automate email responses back to them, or we can track when they've come to our website and how often, and we can put a score against whether or not they're actually interested in potentially buying from us or taking a guess as to how qualified that lead is. So a tool like ActiveCampaign, which is relatively simple and cheap compared to some of the other tools that are out there, is a great way to get started with marketing automation. Google Workspace, we're all familiar at this point with Google. We know what it is, but there are some built-in automations within Google, just things like labeling your email when it comes from specific people or specific companies or things where it ends in a certain domain so that you know that this is coming from client A versus client B. That helps a lot. There's also ways that you can create to-do lists automatically and other things. And then there's a calendar function that lets you do some things with the calendar. There's so much automation just built into Google Workspace. If you're not taking advantage of that, I highly recommend you start there. Another one really quick, Typeform is a new one for us. We've been using forms that were built in to ActiveCampaign and they've been great, but Typeform is a much nicer, cleaner, prettier way to build a form. And it also allows us to do conditional forms. So if somebody answers yes or no, then we can send them down 2 different paths as they fill out the form, which really, really helps us to figure out people's needs, specifically when they call us or they email us and they're asking like, I'd like to start a project. And then we say, well, what kind of project? And then what type of person and how many hours and all of those things Typeform really, really helps us out with.
It's super pretty. If you're a visual person, I'm a designer. My background is in design. So I love Typeform because it's like I can see it. It's got pictures and it's, it's really nice and organized.
Oops. And there's like logic trees and things that make
like
me
it.
happy. But it's not overly complicated. It doesn't have to be. Yeah.
Logic tree. We talked about logic trees, auditing, taxes. It's super
Decision
exciting.
trees are fun. Huh?
So Calendly is really cool. Do any of you guys use Calendly, buddy? Yeah, it's nice. And one of the reasons, I'm just going to give you an example of something else that it's like torturous. And I know we've all done this, where it's like, hey, Kelly, you want to have lunch on Wednesday? We can have a meeting. We can talk about that thing. And then Kelly's like, Wednesday doesn't work for me. And then like, I get an email and I'm like, oh, cool. What about Thursday? No, not Thursday. What about Friday? Oh, Friday, I'm out of town. So you do this back and forth like 16 times. And you're like, I don't even want to meet with you anymore. Like, freaking send me a letter. Like, this is done.
Yeah.
So Calendly is awesome because you can go in and you can set up your working hours. Like, you can go and set up like, this is the time, these are the days of the week that I want to meet for clients. And these are the days of the week that I want to like schedule, time to talk to like new leads or whatever it is. But you can organize your time into buckets, and you can also protect the time. Because again, our time, pandas, whales, our time, we need to protect it. So you can set up this whole calendar, and then when Kelly reaches out to me and she's like, I want to schedule a meeting, I can send her my Calendly link and she can book based on what she has available, and it's in my calendar, it's all organized. So it's lovely, unless you like that back and forth, like 16 email
That's right.
email dance.
And it syncs with your calendar. So if you've booked another meeting in the meantime, then that comes off the books on this, which is really, really great too.
It is. It is. The extra bonus of Calendly is it also allows you to kind of qualify your leads. So again, if we're protecting our time, we want to make sure when we're meeting with people or meeting a lead that we understand what we're going to be doing in that meeting. Because besides long email back and forth, I hate pointless meetings. Like, I hate pointlessly long meetings too. So the beauty of Calendly is it kind of forces your folks to like go through a few hoops. So before you meet with me, what is the purpose of meeting with me? Like, what do you want to accomplish? What questions do you have? Et cetera, et cetera. So that way, when you sit down, sometimes you'll lose people right there. They're like, I don't even know. I just wanted a free coffee.
Right. And so you don't have that meeting, which is great.
It's awesome. It's gone.
Yep.
They eliminate out. But if they do answer the questions, then when you sit down, you have an agenda that's already been written out for you. You have a purpose. You have questions that you can come to the table answering, as opposed to doing that 45-minute back and forth. Why are we here? That stuff. So Calendly is an amazing tool just for that resource, organizing your time and then also qualifying those leads.
Yep. It's super simple to set up. You can do this in 30 minutes, an hour. The learning curve is really,
There's
really
a free
low.
version.
There's a free version and then there's a paid version. That's true too. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. And Zapier, this is my favorite tool in the whole entire world, probably. So Zapier, what it does is it connects over 5,000 pieces of software as a service all over the internet. And it allows you to automate things. So I tell our team all the time, if you have to copy and paste information from one place to another, please don't do that. Please tell me where you're copying and pasting, and then we will find a way to automate that. It's incredible when you start to think about the ability to pull something off of a Google Sheet or an Excel file, and then put that information into our CRM, or to create a blog post out of it or a social media post from it. There's so many, like an unlimited number of ways that you can use this to add it to your project management software, to alert people on Slack. I mean, one thing that one person does can end up in sending it to all of your different pieces of software and syncing it up all at the same time. It's really cool. So as an idea of just how this works, I actually stole this off their homepage. So this is not unique and I didn't write it. But it illustrates the point. Let's say that you have a social media ad and it's on Facebook and you get 250 clicks for that ad. Well, now we've got this new lead and we want to alert our internal team on Slack. We use Discord, but same thing. We want to alert them on Slack and tell our team, hey, we've got a new lead. That's great. At the same time, we want to add that person to our email list so that we can then email them later on. From there, we could put them into our sales pipeline. We could do any number of things. We could send automated emails to ask them to sign up for some time on Calendly, as an example. And then when they sign up for that time on Calendly, it sends a note back to us through Slack that says, hey, I've signed up for time now. So when you start to think about your processes and all the little things that you're wasting your time on every day, this busy work, this copy and paste, this move information from one place to another, Zapier is probably the easiest tool. It's a no-code tool. You don't have to know how to be a developer. All you need to do is to think about, I want someone or something to happen, and then what's the next thing that I want to happen, and what's the next thing that I want to happen after that. And if you have just a little bit of systems thinking, it takes a very little amount of time to get your first one going. And after you get your first one, it goes really quick. They also have ones that are already built for you. and you can search those. And that's a really, really wonderful way to get started, is to just use one that's straight out of the can and test it out. It sounds intimidating, but honestly, from an automation perspective, there's no way you could build 5,000 APIs and then make them all work back and forth seamlessly. Zapier does cost money, but it's a very little amount of money for what it does. It's less than you would pay a virtual assistant to do this stuff manually.
It's John's favorite thing.
It's my favorite thing. And if you want to talk about it more, we can talk about it more, but we'll stop for now.
Yeah, it's really
Yes.
cool. Like how he'll like set up the zaps and stuff, and he starts to describe what's happening. I'm like, I don't even need to know. It just sounds awesome. Make it happen. It's like black magic out there, just zinging all around. But the cool thing too is like the things that are happening in the background of your business, like you could be at the beach, you could be picking up your kids, you could be getting groceries, whatever you want, and all of a sudden it's really cool to see a lead come through and be like, oh, I'm crushing business while I'm doing these other things. So it allows you to expand and like multiply. I mean, this used to be a lot of people, doing these things. But one thing we say about automations, because automations and AI and all this stuff gets kind of dumped on. It's like, oh, you're taking people out of the equation. But the reason why we love automations is because it allows us to focus on the relationship and kind of like let those things that can be automated be automated. So it has a beautiful end result, because now we can focus on relationships as opposed to like, pushing things around the internet.
Right. Yeah. When you think about the transactional relationship of business, automations really help us with the transaction side of things, right? And then the relationship side, that's what we pride ourselves on. And when going back to sort of where we started, Mari wanted to keep low fixed costs, low overhead. As she built this company, she bootstrapped Uncompany all by herself. And so hiring new people is a challenge. We don't have unlimited funds. We don't have a big chunk of cash. And so when we spend money to pay people to do things, we want to make sure that it's money well spent and it's time well spent. And this allows us to hire people as opposed to transactional people. And it helps us then to be able to retain our clients, build new, better client relationships, and also to have good, solid working relationships with our freelancers.
Someday Zapier will probably like pick up your kids. It's probably coming soon.
Yeah, we'll see.
Or order your groceries. You probably can't get it to order your groceries.
Probably.
Okay, so this takes us to the last. Mhm.
I saw the Facebook. Does it recognize a post like Zapier?
Yes.
Would say, okay,
Yeah.
oh, you got a like and pull it in.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
crazy. It does a lot of
Yeah.
things. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of things.
Yeah.
It is very useful.
And
Yeah.
they're always adding different integrations. So that's the thing. It's like it's constantly. Whoosh.
People who comment,
Yeah.
people who like, you can set it up based on their different interactions. And for Instagram, for any of your social media, there's this app for that. It's like, the whole thing, like there's an app for that with,
Now there's that.
there's a
Yeah.
app for that now. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I don't know that it knows that. I don't know that it goes that far. And that's a real challenge. What I would say there is that,
Bots are getting very smart.
yeah, you still have to monitor what's going on to some extent and be able to tell the difference. And it's, they're getting sophisticated and really, really smart about the way that they do things. But you can also build traps into your automation. So you could force someone to, let's say that they like something on Facebook, and then you send them a follow-up email. Well, if a person doesn't respond to that follow-up email, then they don't go to the next stage in whatever your automation is. If they respond to that email and they fill out the form, but they don't give you the answers that you're looking for, they're not a qualified lead, right? So then even if they are a bot, if they don't qualify as a lead, then they don't go to step number 3. So you can, if you start to think about like, how can I eliminate the fluff, whether it's a bot or just a non-qualified lead or whatever, then you can start to build in steps that would require manual. And allow people not to go beyond it. So just because they like something, that's cool. But what we really want is not just for them to like it, but we want them to be maybe a buyer, right? And interested in buying our things. And so that's where steps 2 and 3 and 4 get more sophisticated. And you start to think about people doing some level of that interaction. I think it's easy to use. I mean, I think Mari might be a
Yeah, I mean, it can get really complicated, especially if you're integrating like multiple things. If you're taking a lead and putting it in active campaign and then having it ping your, text you and all this stuff, there can be layers involved. But they do have like off the shelf ones that you can take and integrate. I think the easiest ones are like if you use Google, which we've all heard about it. They're going to be real big someday. Google's going to be real big. But if you use Google and you use Google Forms or something like that to kind of fill out stuff and it dumps into a Google Sheet, you can take that and you can kind of parse that information anywhere. So I would say go and poke around and just kind of see. And if you have questions, just
Yeah.
let us know. Let John know.
They have a free option, and you can go in and test out the free option and start with the baked in ones that they've already done. Just even if it doesn't apply to what you're trying to do, just set one up. A like from Facebook is a really good example, and then have that dumped to an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet, just so that you see how it works. The user interface is relatively simple when you're talking about building an automation, but when you get in there, I would say don't start by going like, I have this giant process of 20 steps and I want it to do if this, then that, then this over here, and then maybe loop back around. Let's not start there. Let's start with like, I want it to go from step A to step B. And then you get a little fancier and you go, oh, well, I'd like it to go step A to step B, and then maybe C or D, you know, and just build it out. And once you do 2 or 3, maybe 4, and you get them working and you see where they fail and where they break, then you'll start to understand how it works. I would also say never build a giant one that's like 16 steps. Build some that are like max 2 or 3 steps and build several of those. Don't go crazy with the logic all at once. That it's too much to maintain.
Use Miro, which is another tool that we use too.
Yeah.
To walk out your workflows. All right. So Nancy, eliminate, just say no. So this is the box that we mentioned is like the kind of quick, easy wins that you can kind of go through and eliminate some of those things. I also like to take this box and divide it into 2 boxes. I like to put things in boxes. So we have our easy big nose, doom scrolling through the news, 45-minute TikTok session, you know, checking on your friend's Facebook page from high school to see what they're doing, all that stuff. I'm going to put researching future Airbnbs in there. It's probably a waste of my time. So those are the things that we can get rid of quickly and first, and then we get some time back right there. Maybe not, you can cut it 2 hours of doom scrolling. You can just kind of reduce it down. There's also some great resources on our phone that you get that alert once a week that tells you how you're spending your time, and we all kind of die inside. We're like, oh, that's a good one too. You can just utilize that and start to eliminate from there. I made this other box that's the mostly knows. So these are the things that we say kind of like the soft yeses to when we really want them to be no, but we are going to say yes. These are the things like there's usually 2 reasons why. There's the FOMO reason. They're like, I'm going to say yes to not to this meeting, to a webinar or to something.
Or a lunch and learn.
Or a lunch and learn because I want lunch. No, I'm going to say yes to this when I really want it to be no, but I feel like if I say no to this now, then they're never going to invite me again. And it's going to be all off the table. So we have fear that if we don't do something right now, it's never going to come back to us. And then the second one is my favorite, is the guilt. I'm going to say yes because I feel bad. If I don't say yes to that lunch with my friend or that thing, then she's going to feel bad. You know, it's going to be this emotional thing. So those are the things that we also need to pay attention to, because while we'll say yes to some of them, they absorb a lot of our time. The appointments that we really shouldn't drive across town to go to, all that stuff. So eliminate in this box. Pay attention to why you're doing that, because again, a lot of those things can be things that you are using to procrastinate doing some of the things that you should delegate.
And it's not that you have to say completely no either. You just want to reduce, right? Like reduce, reuse, recycle kind of thing. You want to reduce, and that's okay.
1 coffee across town.
That's right. That's 1 coffee across town. So now we're going to bring this back to Steve. Steve has looked at his audit, and he's found 5 hours of time in his week that he can delegate to someone else, internally or externally. That's great for Steve. He's also maybe used Zapier, maybe just used some basic tools, and he's automated things that might take him 6 hours in a week. This would be setting up your meetings, right? You'd be shocked once you start to track your time, how much time you spend going like, hey, can you do this? So he's automated 6 hours of his week. And then he's eliminated the doom scrolling and all that stuff to save 7 hours. And he has found 18 hours of time throughout his week. That is 2 nights sleep for people, or 2 working days, depending on what your priorities are. So now Steve has the opportunity to take a vacation if he wants. He can build this up so that in 18 hours, he can be more productive, 2 extra days of time working on things, getting things done. The average person spends about 4 hours productive every day. That's been the like tried and true. There've been a lot of studies on that, about 4 hours productive every day. So Steve's maybe grabbing an extra hour a day out of that, and that's wonderful for him. He can pitch a new system. Maybe he has time now to take his cooking class. I would probably spend that time on the tennis court, But Steve wants to cook, so that's cool for Steve. So now Steve has really, he's saved himself 2 working days or 2 nights sleep. Which is
When you say yes to something non-essential, you are essentially saying no to something essential. So this was my 2019-ish book of the year, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less, Essentialism by Greg McEwen. It's an amazing book. It's very short, succinct. It's wonderful. I highly recommend it. And this quote to me is the whole reason, why I think we're talking about this today. It's like, we're making an exchange, right? We cannot create time. Again, pandas, whales are time. We cannot create time. We can only exchange it. So we just have to be really aware of how we're spending it so we can get it back and we can put it to better use.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Question.
Now, before we take some questions, there is a QR code here. We have built a landing page on our website that conveniently has some automation and a form built into it. Surprise, since we talked today. But it also has that time audit. It's a Google sheet that we've built that will let you just fill in your time. And then if you categorize it through the week, it'll show you some graphs to show you how you're spending your time. We've also got links to some articles, an article on specifically the Eisenhower box and goes into more detail than what we talked about. So it's just a little recap landing page. And we encourage you all to hop on there, at least grab the free stuff. And if you would like to learn more about working with Uncompany, then you can fill out the form and then it will shoot an automated email back to you. But then a real person will follow up on the non-transactional side.
We've given you guys back a whole 9 minutes of your time. So
That's right.
there you go.
Yes. So
But we'll take any questions if you guys
Yep.
have any specific questions.
Does that even work with desktop apps, or is it just anything that's out in the cloud? Of course, it's on their list. Right?
yeah, anything that's out in the cloud, if it's not on the internet, it can't connect to it, right? But there are some things like, for instance, if you have an Excel sheet and you're using Office 365 online and it's synced up, then it'll work with that. So if you think about, if it lives in the cloud, it probably has a connection. If you have some desktop only apps, I would say probably not. Although you could get fancy and build some code to then do that, but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't even waste the time doing that. Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question about your continuous workforce.
Mhm.
Does that workforce include anybody who's visually impaired to perform accessibility studies?
Like ADA stuff. We have some folks in our network that have done ADA compliance stuff, audits. You mean like in terms of an audit? Mhm.
But we don't specifically have people who are visually impaired. We don't have anyone on our list right now, if that's what you're asking. Would be interesting to talk to them.
My other question is about your workforce. Are they security cleared? Like, because you mentioned it was mobile.
Mm.
So are they based in the United States, or if they are in other countries, how would you clear them for security?
Mm.
So we don't have anybody that has like US security clearance. We have a couple of folks that were working in DC. And so I think it's something that they have to bring up annually, depending on what level of security clearance that they've gone through. Our folks overseas, so we have a couple people in Asia and in Europe. And so they don't necessarily have specific US security clearance. They're working based there. But I can talk to you with some additional things after that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes.
So I've heard of like Upwork and Fiverr. What are some of the differentiators that Uncompany could provide for me when I'm looking for a freelancer? I haven't really explored either of those options, but I know that I've been recommended them. So I mean, we're still kind of bootstrapping, my partner and I. So
Yeah.
I don't want to spend money when I don't have clear vision on what I can delegate to them. If I can do it myself, or we can do it ourselves.
Yep.
So what sort of differentiators can Uncompany offer if I'm looking to use some freelancers?
Yeah, I think number one, the difference is that you have people to deal with. You have Mari, you have me, you have Rochelle, who's our client manager. But you have people to call and to talk to. When you're dealing with an online platform, you're dealing with the platform, maybe with customer support, and then with the person that you engage in. So, but the step one is I mean, the biggest differentiator I think is that we are people first. That's why we automate the transactional side of things. The other thing that separates us a little bit from others is that we deal primarily with people who have at least 10 years of experience doing what they're doing. You know, when you hire an Uncompany freelancer, that they have been doing the work and they've done it well. They've gone through our vetting and our process. They wouldn't be on our list if they weren't good at what they do. Whereas if you hop on one of those platforms, you are subject to looking at the reviews and hoping that their reviews and their are legitimate, real, and that they can actually get the work done. So our freelancers, we'd like to think are sort of at a slightly higher level in their careers.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, Upwork and those are the big players like
Yeah.
Upwork, Guru, all those ones have been around forever. And it's interesting because right now, post-COVID, there's such a massive explosion in, I would call, like the contingent workspaces. There's just businesses popping up all over, which is super exciting to us. But a lot of what we do is, before I started Uncompany, I worked as a freelancer. And so I experienced all the like yucky stuff that I saw and I didn't like. And so a lot of what we build into our business is that we pay our freelancers what they're asking for. It's more transparent. So our conversation with our freelancers and they're business owners, right? They're all their own businesses. And so it's important to us. We're not trying to like scoop them up and like tell them what to do. We're really trying to help them grow, again, build, grow, and scale their business. And so it's interesting, a lot of our, individual working freelancers end up becoming clients of ours. They end up growing and scaling to be, they're small agencies. And so when we partner, when we're working with people like yourself who are trying to find people, it's also like, you'll tell us your business, you'll tell us what you need. And based on our experience, we've worked in creative agencies and different, marketing teams, we can make recommendations. So when you're kind of going to a platform, sometimes you have to figure out like, I think I need a writer. I think I need this. We can use our expertise to say, you know what, you don't need this. You need this person, and this person's a better fit.
Right.
So our goal is to find you somebody, a person or a team. And we have a service where you actually build a large kind of custom freelance pool of people. Our goal is to find you something that you can work with ongoing. It's not like a stop the bleeding. It's like, this is going to be your flexible worker into eternity or until you convert them into full-time or contract. So
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about, we call it adaptive staffing, but this idea that as you grow, your business is going to change. And we want to be a part of that with you, right? So, we will sit down with you at a point and talk to you about what are your needs today, where do you see it going in the future, and help you to understand when it might be time to hire somebody full-time, when it might be time to freelance something out. So there's sort of a consultative side of our business too, that isn't just about filling a spot for you. I mean, certainly if you need 4 blog posts done and you need them done next week, we can find you a person to do that, and that's cool. But the difference really is that we view it as a long-term relationship and not just a one-off transaction, one transaction at a time.
yeah. Yes. In our mind, the future staff will be a hybrid staff of full-timers, contractors, flex workers, remote workers, and partnerships. So it's like a lot of our goal with working with our clients is to get them started and to get them to grow, and then again to get them to build that staff that it creates that flexibility in your staff. So when you have something crazy, the global pandemic, who knows what's next, you can have that margin built into your business, because it's for us, it's all about also protecting the people cost of business. So it's like, you saw this in the pandemic, people were laid off in a massive way. We're seeing that again. We're like, guys, did we not learn this 2 years ago? So staffing in a way that's really smart, so you can build margin in your business. So when you have these things happen, you can kind of flex up and down. Any other questions? Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you all. Yay. Cool. Have a great day, everyone.
Yes. Get back to work. Know how to turn this off.
Yeah, what's fun?
I know, we had a big, nice whole room in here.
Let's try to turn this off. I just hold this down.
That one's off.
There you go.
This one, I don't know how.
Yeah, yeah, they're great. We use them for like fitness classes too.
Yes, Lauren.